Right now, something very unusual is happening in Canada's housing market. It's not crashing, it's not rebounding, it's not even really moving. According to RBC, Canada's housing market has entered what they're called a waiting game. And that phrase matters because it explains why so many buyers, sellers, and homeowners are feeling stuck right now. By late fall, RBC says that the sellers essentially locked themselves into a standoff. Buyers are waiting, sellers are waiting, and that stalemate has frozen activity across much of the country. In fact, RBC describes the entire fall market as largely a non-event. And that's not something you hear very often in real estate. Normally, when interest rates come down, activity picks up. More showing, more offers, more sales. But this time, it didn't happen. Even after interest rate cuts from the Bank of Canada in September and October, home sales across Canada barely moved. RBC says national home resales have essentially gone sideways since July. A small dip one month, a small increase the next, but no real momentum in either direction. And that flat line matters because when home sales stop moving, power starts to shift. Over the past couple of years, especially in Ontario and British Columbia, the number of sellers have grown. More listings, more competition, more choice for buyers. RBC says buyers are using that leverage to push back. In their words, buyers are starting to strong-arm sellers into reducing prices. And to be fair, it's working, at least to a degree. Canada's composite home price index is now down about 3.7% compared to a year ago. That's not a crash, but it's also not growth. It's a market drifting sideways, waiting for someone to blink first. And here's where things get more complicated. This waiting game is not happening evenly across the country. Ontario and British Columbia are feeling the most pressure. These are the same markets that saw the biggest price gains during the pandemic, and they're still carrying the weight of higher prices, higher mortgages, and tighter affordability. In cities like Toronto and Ottawa, home sales fell again in November. Not because people don't want to buy, but because too many buyers are doing the math and hesitating. Even with lower rates, payments are still too high. Stress tests are still strict, and many buyers believe prices could soften further. So they wait. At the same time, sellers are facing a very different market than they've expected. Listings built up through 2023 and 2024. Some investors tried to exit. Some homeowners tested the market, and many sellers came out expecting 2021 style demand, only to find out today's buyers are far more cautious. That mismatch is a waiting game. Buyers won't chase, sellers won't deeply cut. So deals stall. But this is where the national story breaks apart. Outside of Ontario, British Columbia, and parts of Alberta, RBC says many markets are still running relatively hot. Sales increases in cities like Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, and Saskatchewan. Supply is tight. Inventory hasn't built the same way, and prices in those regions are still under upward pressure. This is why national headlines can feel misleading. One city feels frozen, another feels balanced, another feels still competitive. And RBC expects this divergence to continue. They don't see one unified national trend returning anytime soon. Instead, they expect city-by-city fundamentals to matter more than they have in years. Now let's talk about interest rates, because this is where psychology plays a huge role. RBC points out something subtle but important. Despite rate cuts, buyers didn't push back into the market. Why? Because many believe that rates will even cut even further. So instead of acting, they waited. But now that expectation is changing. The Bank of Canada is signaling that the current easing cycle is likely over, at least for now. And RBC believes that message could be the signal for some buyers have been waiting for. Not because rates are suddenly cheap, but because certainty matters. People can plan around stable rates. They struggle to act in uncertain ones. That's why RBC expects some of the pent-up demand built over the last couple of years to slowly unlock heading into 2026. But this won't be a rapid rebound. Affordability challenges remain. Job confidence still matters. And RBC specifically flags lower immigration levels as a headwind to future demand. Fewer new households means less natural absorption of supply, especially in markets that relied heavily on population growth. So this isn't a boom story, it's a reset. And in a reset, risk doesn't disappear, it shifts. For buyers, this market creates opportunity through choice. In many Ontario markets, there's more inventory, more negotiations, and more breathing room than we've seen in years. In many Ontario markets, there's more inventory, more negotiations, and more breathing room than we've seen in years. Conditions are back, price reductions exist, and pressure is lower. The buyers who do best here aren't trying to time the bottom. They're focused on affordability that works today. For sellers, strategy matters more than hope. Pricing right matters, presentation matters, and understanding your local market matters more than a national headline. Some sellers can't wait. Others, especially those facing renewal, lifestyle changes, or investment exits, they may not have that luxury. And for homeowners approaching renewal, this waiting game carries the most pressure. Many Canadians are renewing into higher rates than before. Payments rise, cash flow tightens, and doing nothing becomes a decision, often an expensive one. RBC's message is clear. Momentum may return, but it will return slowly. And in a slower market, the advantage doesn't go to the bold. It goes to the prepared. This is no longer a national housing story. It's a street by street, city by city, situation by situation market. And as we head into 2026, preparation, not prediction, is what will determine who feels stuck and who feels in control. I'm Justin Chaussee of the Chaussee Mortgage Group, and if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe so that we can continue to make more videos like this for people like you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.